what if the things that make us go, wow, that's unbelievable,
Mm.
ghosts, UFOs, psychic stuff, weren't actually breaking the rules of nature?
Mm-hmm.
What if they were just showing us how incredibly vast and frankly how strange nature truly is?
Yeah, that's a fascinating question. And it's right at the heart of our deep dive today. You shared this book with us, The Supernatural, A New Vision of the Unexplained by Whitley Strieber and Jeffrey Kripal.
Exactly.
And we're going to really try and unpack its core ideas.
And what makes this so interesting, I think, is the pairing.
Yeah.
It's such a unique mix of perspectives.
Right.
You've got Whitley Strieber, who's famous for his really personal accounts, encountering things that just defy easy explanation.
The experience?
Yeah, the experiencer.
Yeah.
And then alongside him, Jeffrey Kripal is a scholar and academic immersed in studying mysticism, the paranormal.
It's definitely an unusual combination, potentially groundbreaking even.
So our mission today, really stemming from you sharing this, is to distill their key arguments, explore how this collaboration kind of challenges our usual ways of thinking about reality, about these unexplained phenomena that often just get dismissed.
Yeah, let's see what makes this partnership tick and, how it might offer a fresh way of looking at things for everyone listening.
Okay, so let's get to know the people behind the book a bit. First up, Whitley Strieber.
Right.
Many will probably know him from his earlier stuff, horror, science fiction, books like The Wolf and the Hunger.
Exactly. A successful fiction writer first.
Yeah.
But then, 1987, Communion.
Nonsense. Yes, Communion.
And that book, detailing his alleged experiences with what he called the visitors, that really changed things. It shifted his focus completely.
And it ignited this huge public conversation, didn't it, about alien encounters? I mean, that book was everywhere.
It was massive, a bestseller, sparked tons of debate, obviously, but it undeniably pushed the topic into the mainstream.
And he hasn't stopped, has he? He's kept writing about these experiences, engaging with the ideas on his website, the Dreamland podcast. It seems like an ongoing exploration for him.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And in this book, The Supernatural, Strieber is essentially providing the raw data, the experiential side of things.
First-hand accounts.
Yeah, those narratives, those reflections on events that just don't fit into our neat little boxes. It gives readers a direct look at the kind of encounters the book wants to analyze.
Okay, then there's Jeffrey Kripal.
Yeah.
Coming from a very different world, academia.
Right. Professor at Rice University. His specialties are Gnosticism, esotericism, mysticism, sometimes called GM.
GM? Okay.
And his work covers a lot: comparative erotics, how Asian religions influenced American counterculture. But really relevant here is his deep dive into the history and the phenomenology of the paranormal.
So he studies the experience of the paranormal.
Exactly. Books like Authors of the Impossible, Mutants and Mystics, they really get into it. And a key part of his work seems to be questioning the limits of pure materialism.
Right. He doesn't think that explains everything.
Not at all. He strongly argues for bringing the paranormal back into serious academic discussion. And he uses this approach he calls new comparativism.
New comparativism. What's the gist of that?
Well, it means looking at these unusual experiences across different times, different cultures, looking for patterns,
Finding the common threads.
Yeah. He really emphasizes consciousness, the experiential roots of things we might call religious or mystical phenomena.
So in The Supernatural, Kripal is the one building the framework, providing the historical context, the analytical tools to maybe make sense of Strieber's very personal, very strange experiences, drawing connections to myths, folklore.
Exactly, offering a new lens, really. He approaches these big, kind of mind-bending questions from his religious studies background. It lends a certain academic weight to Strieber's accounts.
Which must have been validating for Strieber, I imagine.
I think so. The book notes this kind of blurring of roles, actually. Strieber gets some academic legitimacy, maybe?
Yeah.
And Kripal gets these compelling contemporary examples that fuel his arguments against strict materialism.
And showcases new comparativism approach.
Right. It's a mutually beneficial setup, it seems. Strieber grounds Kripal's theories. Kripal offers new ways to interpret Strieber's encounters.
Okay, so we have these two distinct voices, these complementary perspectives. What's the big idea they're putting forward together? What's the core argument of The Supernatural?
The central argument, and it's pretty radical, is that these things we call supernatural UFOs, entity encounters, psychic flashes, whatever, they aren't actually breaking the laws of nature.
Okay.
Instead, they argue these are fundamental parts of a much, much bigger, much weirder natural world, what they call the supernatural.
Supernatural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And nature that is, and this is their quote, immeasurably more weird, more wonderful, and probably more populated than we currently think.
So the unexplained isn't outside nature, it's just part of a nature we haven't fully grasped yet.
That's the core idea. It's not about something beyond nature. It's about drastically expanding our definition of what natural even means.
And they argue our current way of thinking holds us back.
Definitely. A crucial part of their argument is that our existing categories and cultures, particularly scientific materialism, act like filters. Restrictive filters.
Blinders, almost.
Yeah, preventing us from even seriously considering these possibilities. Like, we've built this conceptual box around reality, and anything outside it just gets ignored or explained away.
So to see this supernatural reality, we need to change how we perceive things, change the lenses we use, maybe even our language.
Precisely. The book isn't just, documenting weird stuff. It's aiming for a fundamental shift, a reconceptualization. It wants to bring back what Kripal calls rejected knowledge into the conversation.
Challenge the dominant views.
Right. Now, it's important to note they don't necessarily claim to have all the answers about what these things ultimately are.
They're not saying, okay, UFOs are definitely aliens from Zeta Reticuli.
No, not quite. They deliberately maintain what scholars call ontological ambiguity. They focus more on the experiences themselves, the patterns, the effects, the implications.
So analyzing the phenomena without nailing down the ultimate source.
Exactly. They're more interested in posing better questions than giving easy answers. They assert the experiences are real in some meaningful way, but the nature of that reality is left open.
And by calling it supernatural, they're suggesting our idea of nature isn't fixed, right? It can evolve.
Absolutely. The boundaries of what we consider natural have shifted throughout history. Think about things we take for granted now that would have seemed like magic centuries ago.
Good point.
Their argument is that these excluded phenomena should prompt us to radically revise our understanding again, not just dismiss them because they don't fit the current model.
Okay, so it's really expansive idea. How do they actually build their case? What are the key arguments, the theoretical tools they use?
Well, a really fundamental starting point is rejecting that simple binary skepticism versus belief.
The debunkers versus the true believers.
Right. They see that whole setup as a major roadblock to understanding. They advocate for a third way, a perspective that can handle paradox, ambiguity, that doesn't need immediate black and white answers.
Learning to sit with the question, as they put it.
Exactly. It's about avoiding those entrenched positions that can blind you to the nuances.
Makes sense. It's easy to get stuck there.
Another key concept Kripal brings in is the Kantian cut, from Immanuel Kant.
Okay, philosophy time.
Just a bit. The idea is it allows them to analyze these reported experiences seriously as phenomena as they appear to us without making immediate claims about the underlying reality, the noumena, as Kant called it.
So look at the experience of an alien abduction, its patterns, its effects, without having to first prove aliens exist in a spaceship.
Precisely. Take the experience seriously as data in itself. What does the report tell us? What patterns emerge across many reports?
Okay, I get that. Focus on the experiential level first.
Yeah, and this connects to William James's radical empiricism, the idea that all experience is potential data, not just what fits our current scientific models. And building on that, they strongly suggest consciousness is way more central to this than we usually think.
Consciousness? How so? Like our minds are creating this.
Yeah.
Or interacting with it.
More like interacting, potentially. They hint strongly that consciousness might have properties beyond just the physical brain, ideas like non-local consciousness.
Mind affecting matter.
Possibly. Or the idea that our own psyche, our inner world, might be a crucial factor, maybe even a gateway in these encounters. They touch on things like Aldous Huxley's mind at large.
The filter theory.
Mm-hmm.
That our brains limit reality rather than create it.
Kind of, yeah. It opens up the possibility that our inner state isn't just passively observing, but might be entangled with external events in ways we don't understand.
Wow, okay. That's a pretty mind-bending idea itself, not just in the head, but interacting with reality.
It certainly opens up different ways to think about these phenomena. And then, of course, there's Kripal's comparative work, folklore, mythology, religion.
Right, the new comparativism again.
Exactly. They put modern accounts, UFOs, abductions side by side with historical tales of fairies, demons, encounters with gods, mystical visions.
And they find similar patterns.
That's the argument. Recurring themes, archetypes,
Yeah.
suggesting that these kinds of interactions between humans and some perceived otherness might be a long-standing part of human experience, just wearing different cultural clothes over time.
So UFOs could be like modern folklore, or a modern manifestation of an ancient pattern.
They float that idea, yeah, that maybe these aren't entirely new phenomena, but echoes of something ancient interacting with our modern technological context. It's about recognizing potential connections across history.
Fascinating. Okay, what else? You mentioned the erotic earlier.
Ah, yes. And Kripal uses erotic in a very broad, specific way here, drawing from Plato, psychoanalysis, even Eastern traditions. It's not just about sex.
Okay, so what does it mean in this context?
It refers more to intense connection, energy exchange, desire, creativity, the kind of transformative power that can arise from these profound, often boundary-dissolving experiences.
So the intensity of the connection, the energy involved.
Yes, and the potential for transformation. They also look at how trauma, which is often part of these reported encounters, can be linked to later significant shifts in a person's worldview or understanding of reality.
So even negative experiences can be catalysts for change.
Potentially, yes. And while they definitely acknowledge the psychological aspects, you can't ignore them, they generally lean away from purely psychological explanations.
They think there's something more going on. Ontologically real, perhaps?
They suggest the psyche might be more like a gateway or an antenna for these other realities rather than just the generator of hallucinations.
And Kripal also brings in gnosis, right? Direct knowledge.
Yeah, connecting it to Gnostic and esoteric traditions, he interprets these supernatural encounters as potential sources of direct, intuitive insight, a kind of knowing that bypasses normal, rational thought.
So the experiences themselves might impart knowledge.
That's the idea, a transformative knowledge.
Okay, the book itself has this structure, right? Straber chapters, then Kripal chapters, back and forth. How does that style serve their argument?
Oh, it's absolutely crucial. That alternating structure creates this constant dialogue, this rhythm between the personal, often really unsettling firsthand accounts from Straber.
The raw experience.
Right. And then Kripal's more scholarly analysis, weaving in the history, the theory, posing these challenging intellectual questions.
So you're constantly moving between the what happened and the what might it mean?
Exactly. It keeps the reader engaged on both levels. And reviewers often commented on the writing style, energetic, illuminating, surprisingly readable sometimes, even with the complex ideas.
But also potentially disturbing, I imagine.
Oh, yeah. They mentioned that too. It definitely pushes boundaries and challenges fundamental assumptions. That's kind of the point.
So the style itself reinforces the message, this back and forth.
I think so. And the emphasis on questions over answers, that's deliberate too. It mirrors their call to embrace ambiguity. The very structure embodies that integration of experience and reflection they're arguing for.
So given how unconventional it is, how was the book received? What did people make of this experiencer academic team up?
Well, as you might expect, the reception was varied, pretty polarized in some ways. It definitely got a lot of praise for its ambition, for the significance of the collaboration itself. You know, finally seeing someone like Straber, an experiencer, taken seriously and engaged with by a respected academic.
People appreciated that bridge being built.
Yeah, and Straber's intelligence and sort of perceived sincerity were often mentioned. Plus, the challenge to materialism, the rejection of that simple belief skepticism dichotomy that resonated with many readers.
So seen as a thoughtful reevaluation.
By many, yes. People like Dean Radin, Gary Lackman praised its importance for exploring consciousness and reality. The writing style often got good marks, too.
But not everyone loved it, I take it. What were the criticisms?
Well, a common theme, even in positive reviews, was the lack of definitive answers. Some found that frustrating.
Wanted more conclusions.
Right. You see online reviews saying, raises great questions, but doesn't really answer them. There were also critiques about maybe using terms a bit loosely sometimes, or skepticism about their handling of science, like quantum physics discussions.
And I bet the old skepticism about Straber himself from Communion resurfaced.
Oh, definitely. That pre-existing baggage influenced some readings. Some found Kripal's section stronger than Strieber's.
Huh.
And yeah, you find negative reviews too, accusing them of promoting pseudoscience or unfounded beliefs. Kripal himself knows his research areas are controversial.
So where does this book fit academically? Does it connect to specific fields?
Absolutely. It's very relevant within religious studies, particularly Western esotericism, mysticism, and the study of new religious movements. It challenges the field to take paranormal claims more seriously.
Okay.
It also clearly connects to consciousness studies, parapsychology, grappling with mind, reality, experience. And in ufology, it's significant because of the high-profile collaboration and the attempt to create a broader theoretical framework. It has echoes of Jacques Calais' work, perhaps.
And the mixed reception kind of shows how challenging these ideas are to established views.
Exactly. It really poked at some deeply entrenched worldviews.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into the supernatural, what's its lasting significance? What's the main takeaway?
I think its enduring value lies in that unique dialogue it fosters between direct personal experience and rigorous academic analysis. That's quite rare.
Bridging that gap.
Yes. And it offers a framework, a language for challenging the limits of pure materialism, for considering reality in a new way. Plus, drawing those connections between modern anomalies and historical patterns, that comparative aspect is really valuable.
And it certainly throws down a gauntlet, doesn't it? Challenges science, religious studies, even just our everyday assumptions about what's real.
It really does, and its relevance might even be growing, with all the current interest in consciousness, UAPs, things like that. It provides tools for discussing experiences that are often hard to talk about. And it's a great example of Kripal's new comparativism in practice.
But maybe, as you said earlier, the biggest contribution isn't the answers it gives, but the questions it forces us to ask.
I think that's absolutely right. Its refusal to provide easy answers, its insistence on sitting with the question, embracing the ambiguity that might be its most profound impact.
So a final thought for everyone listening. How might our current understanding of what's natural be limiting our perception of reality? What possibilities might open up if we were willing to entertain a broader perspective, this supernatural view that Kripal and Strieber suggest?
Yeah. What might we be missing? It's definitely something worth reflecting on.